Everyone expected the lion to turn on the man once it was free. What followed was a genuine miracle. I was checking the snare line for the third time that day when the African sun beat down mercilessly. My name is Robert Winters. After 22 years as a wildlife conservationist in Kenya's Tsavo National Park, I believed I had seen everything the savannah could throw at a person. Or so I thought. It was September 2018, during one of the worst droughts in recent memory. The land had become a harsh, unforgiving terrain of cracked earth and withered plants. Wildlife was suffering. Elephants trudged for miles in search of water. Buffalo grew thin from hunger, and predators became increasingly desperate as prey grew scarce. My role that season was to track poaching activity along the park's northern boundary. Despite decades of conservation work, illegal hunting still plagued the area, especially during droughts when animals moved predictably toward the last water sources. I wasn't supposed to be alone that day. My partner, Samuel, was down with malaria, leaving me to check the eastern sector solo, something protocol advised against, but necessity required. We had reports of increased snare activity, and every hour mattered when it came to finding and removing these indiscriminate traps. The Toyota Land Cruiser jolted along the rutted track as I headed toward the Galana River, now just a trickle of its former self. The vehicle's air conditioning had failed weeks before, forcing me to drive with the windows down, the hot air offering little relief. My shirt stuck to my back, sweat trickling down my neck as I scanned for anything unusual. I had already found and dismantled 3 wire snares that morning. They were crude but effective traps set for antelope, capable of catching anything unfortunate enough to wander into them. Around midday, I neared a dense thicket of acacia and comifera, perfect cover for poachers to set their deadly devices. The first sign something was wrong came from a wake of vultures circling above. Too few for a major kill, but enough to mean something was dead or dying nearby. I parked the Land Cruiser and grabbed my gear. Binoculars, canteen, snare removal tools, and, breaking protocol once more, just a small caliber sidearm instead of the rifle we normally carried for protection. The thick brush would make a rifle unwieldy, I reasoned, and I only planned a quick sweep of the area. I heard it before I saw anything, a deep, rumbling growl that froze me mid-step. It wasn't the roar of a healthy lion claiming territory or challenging rivals. This was different, a low, continuous sound that communicated pain and warning in equal measure. I crouched on instinct, my senses suddenly hyper-alert. The brush was so thick I could only see about 15 feet in any direction. The growl had come from my right, about 30 yards away by the sound of it. Protocol said to retreat immediately when encountering predators, especially distressed ones. The logical move was to back away slowly, return to the vehicle, and call for properly equipped backup. Instead, I found myself moving cautiously toward the sound, driven by a conservationist's need to know if help was needed. The scene in the small clearing sent adrenaline surging through me. A massive male lion lay partially on his side, his rear leg caught in a cruel wire snare that had cut deep into the flesh. Blood matted his tawny fur, and the skin around the wire was grotesquely swollen. From the torn-up ground, he'd been struggling for at least a day, maybe longer. More alarming was his condition, ribs visible through his hide, meaning he'd been in poor health even before the snare. The drought had taken its toll on even the mightiest predators. He saw me immediately, amber eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that triggered every primal fear in my body. He growled again, tried to rise, but collapsed as the snare bit deeper. Despite his weakness, he was still a male lion, over 400 pounds, with claws and teeth made for killing. I backed away slowly, keeping eye contact while putting distance between us. Once I felt reasonably safe, I called park headquarters on my satellite phone, explained the situation, and asked for the veterinary team. The response was disheartening but not surprising. Dr. Kamathi is in the southern sector with the only tranquilizer kit, the ranger coordinator told me. Helicopters are grounded for maintenance. Earliest we can get to you is tomorrow morning. I looked back toward the clearing and calculated the grim odds. With his injuries, dehydration, and the heat, the lion wouldn't last another 18 hours. By morning, those circling vultures would be feeding. Understood, I replied. I'll stay to monitor until you can get here. As I said it, I knew I was committing to something far more complicated. The satellite phone chirped as the battery died. I'd forgotten to charge it the night before, a rookie mistake born of exhaustion from too many understaffed patrols. My radio could reach the vehicle's unit but not headquarters directly. I was effectively alone with an injured apex predator and a decision to make. Conservation work often presents impossible ethical dilemmas. Non-intervention is the guiding principle with wildlife. Nature should take its course. But there was nothing natural about a poacher's snare. This lion was suffering because of human activity, and that changed the moral calculation. I returned to the vehicle and gathered supplies. Wire cutters, a first aid kit, water, and a tranquilizer pen meant for smaller animals. Nowhere near strong enough for a lion, but the only sedative I had. I also grabbed the heavy leather gloves used for handling injured raptors and the catchpole meant for restraining smaller predators. None of this equipment was intended for lions. What I was considering wasn't just against protocol, it bordered on suicidal. As the afternoon heat intensified, I watched the lion from a safe distance. His condition worsened by the hour. His struggles grew weaker, his mighty head eventually resting on the ground as labored breaths rattled his frame. By late afternoon, he was barely responsive, even when a jackal approached before thinking better of it. The moment of decision came as the sun began to set. Wait until morning for proper help, by which time the lion would almost certainly be dead, or try to intervene now and risk my life in the process. I'd like to say my choice was based purely on rational conservation ethics, the value of saving a prime male lion when populations are stressed. The truth included something more personal. In his suffering, I saw something that demanded action. Professional consequences be damned. The plan, such as it was, relied entirely on the lion being too weak to attack effectively. I would approach from behind, use the catchpole to control his head from a distance, administer the inadequate sedative for whatever slight effect it might have, then try to cut the snare. Even if everything went perfectly, I'd still be dangerously exposed the entire time. I recorded a short video message on my phone, explaining my decision and taking full responsibility. If things went wrong, at least there would be a record of my reasoning, not just another foolish death in the bush. The lion barely reacted as I approached, confirming how grave his condition was. His breathing was shallow, his once powerful body limp except for occasional tremors. Still, I moved with extreme caution, keeping the catchpole extended toward his head. When I was about 10 feet away, his eyes opened, fixing on me with a gaze that seemed more resigned than aggressive. That look triggered something visceral in me, a connection across species, a shared recognition of mortality and suffering that cut through millions of years of evolutionary division. "I'm going to help you," I said quietly, knowing the words meant nothing to him but needing to say them anyway. "But you have to let me." What happened next would be debated, analyzed, and ultimately transform my understanding of these magnificent creatures. As I closed the final distance between us, the wounded king of beasts made a decision that defied natural instinct, one that would set in motion a chain of events none of us could have predicted.